Hello everyone, how you guys doing? Hopefully you're having a wonderful Monday. We are back again as usual with another Fanatics Weekly Review. As always on these Mondays, I go through the top 100 soccer cards auctioned off this last week. If you enjoy these videos, do make sure to leave a like, helps me, helps the channel, all that good stuff. Well, let's go ahead and swing on over to the site. So this week we start at $160, same as usual at this point. Seems pretty strong for the most part, especially in terms of the middle of the pack type stuff. We start with the 63 Riva, that goes in a PSA 3 for 162. You have an early career Matthias in a PSA 8 for 162, pop 1 of 2, 3 higher, along with a 67 Palarex Eusebio in a 2 for 168. Above that, I thought this was a pretty strong sale. I mean, just a silver Messi here for 170. PSA 10 obviously helping carry that there. You have a 70 Pele there and a 5 for 174, along with this Red Wave Lamine Yamal. Looked at PSA 10 sales just beforehand, and there's only been like 4 in the last month and a half when they really started getting graded and coming back, and they've all been around the same price, so those are holding steady. Beyond that, 2007 Monday Chromo, Lionel Messi Marbled Vertical in a PSA 9 goes for 180. This Manga Vinny goes for 180 as well in a PSA 10. Only been a few of those sales. Again, it's a 2024 release, so it takes a little bit of time to get through there, but they've been around 180 as well. 62 Heinerle Pele in a 1 for 180, also finalizing that row. This Yaya Toure in a 7 goes for 186. I checked that, and that was about what other sales have been. There haven't been many 7s, but the 5s, 6s, and 8s would lead you to believe that this was a fair price. Only a few of these sell a year, so not easy to come by. Beyond that, Julian Alvarez Landmarks. We have a Lamine Yamal Mega Cracks in a 10 for 186. As we know, those were a lot higher at one point in time, but at that point in time, there weren't other cards competing against it, so it sort of makes sense that it's dropped a bit. Beyond that, this Baggio goes for 192. There'll be a 5 that also sold for like 210 that we'll see here in a bit, so that's the lower sale. I mean, kind of what you'd expect. The last PSA 6 that sold a few weeks ago was actually about this price, so the two 5s, granted they both sold in the same auction, seem fairly strong. Beyond that, Foil Henri from 2003 Merlin goes for 192. This seemed like a fun one if you're an Henri collector. A foil sticker from 2003, PSA 10 grade, pop 1 of 1. Of course, that can change, but for the time being, all you're going to be able to get. Kylian Mbappe out of 65 Immaculate from 2018, 192. We have this pretty cool Obis of Garrincha. Goes in a PSA 2 for 200, and I did look at this. All right, there we go. The only green one I can find that is sold as of late, and goes for a pretty strong price, one of the stronger of the bunch, but it is a PSA 2 rather than a 1 or an altered, so sort of makes sense at the same time. That seems like a fun ad if you're into that type of stuff. Pulisic rookie here out of 399, so it says rookie. I mean, 2016 is his rookie year, but what are you going to do? It even says rookie on the slab. I guess it says rookie on the card, so Panini going all out in regard to that one. Goes for 192. Didn't pull up comps on that. Honestly thought it was a Ronaldo whenever I first scrolled through. I mean, you know, pretty similar players, what can I say? Way Up PSA 2 goes for 200. I know 9s are about 900, so maybe 100 a grade. These are fairly hard to come by, so I could see people paying up even for something like a 2. But it does seem like a strong sale. I mean, when you consider that like R9s and similar grade probably do about the same for his rookie. Granted, those are more prominent, but so be it. Not a whole lot I can add in this row. Don't know much about the foosball sticker. We have a Messi Monday Chromo in the middle, and then Carlos Alcatraz makes it into the auction block for the first time ever. There you go. And then finally, a Trossard Kaboom. We have a Eric Cantona. I did look this one up. My computer crashed and I had to pull back up most of what I could find. I couldn't get this one, but just a warning, you know, I talk about it all the time, but these sort of sticker autos, the post-playing day legendary players, I understand they're fun cards, you know, people like to have fun collecting, have all the fun you want, but in terms of pricing, I do think that this stuff does not perform well. Every single year, year after year, it gets lower and lower and lower, and will it ever really, you know, go up or perform well in that regard? I mean, I personally have a lot of, disbelief in it, I guess. I struggle to see it, especially when this started coming out, when Prism Cantona autos from like 2020 came out. Those were around $600 to $700. I had comps pulled up, but they're gone. Eventually, a year or two later, it was about $500. Now we're down to $210, and it really hasn't gone back up. Now, maybe once the Prism brand stops, maybe it gets a little bit better, but for the time being, it hasn't looked great. And that's been the same for, you know, Beckham, Zidane, Cantona, anyone. I mean, basically all of the legends. When you're paying $500 a sticker, I mean, it's just not going to go well because those guys can sign a decent amount of stickers and the products are going to keep having their stickers in them, and the demand only seems to wane, really. Maybe one day that changes again. I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there. 66 Beckenbauer, this crack Pog goes for 210 and a PSA 6. Saw a few people in the vintage Discord, link down below as always. Pretty excited for this one, and it's a cool looking one at that. PSA 6 also pretty high grade. But that ends off page 3 for us, or page 4. We go on to page 3 now. We start with an Erling Haaland out of 49. Donruss seemed like a pretty good price on that one. I'm sure the grade helps it a little bit, but out of 49, that's fairly strong. You have an Adis PSA 5 I mentioned earlier. That's the stronger of the sales. This DD was kind of low. I mean, it's an SGC grade rather than PSA, but a 6 Alifa DD for 210. I mean, I think that's a pretty good price for your buyer. Beyond that, a Pepe rookie. There you go. I don't know. I'm going to say that's a Pepe rookie. I'm pretty sure he has Bowman 2020. So, I mean, again, it's got the rookie shield, so be it. 210 there. Beyond that, a rookie refractor. Haaland, you don't see these a lot. That goes for 222. I'd probably rather have this than like a sapphire base and a 10, which is maybe a little bit more expensive at times. Kylian Mbappe Gold Wave out of 10 goes for 222. You can sort of see that the proliferation of like golds and gold waves. It's not true gold, so it's not technically the gold out of 10. It's a gold wave out of 10, but they're sort of getting a little more, I guess, loose with the golds and the out of 10s, and they're just sort of proliferating it even more. And you can see that that doesn't really help the price a ton here. Still gets a decent number at 220. Beyond that, we have a 66 Eurogallo Pele here, and a 1 goes for 228. I thought this was a strong sale. And Nilton Santos from 57 ONB. This is the Colacao, which has the blue and red netting in the background. That goes for 234. We have this Pulisic, which I always think that the Pulisic base cards in their parallel versions, not numbered, go for a decent bit. This is 240 for a multicolored prism. Beyond that, a Domingos here that I had watched. I usually take off what I was watching just to, not show anyone where my eyeballs are, but that one did go for 240, which actually was pretty strong. The last sale of that was maybe a year and a half ago for 240 as well, but that didn't have a designation, so pretty strong sale. This 62 Looter Sport Di Stefano and a 5 goes for 240. Really nice looking card there. Good grade as well to match. Pop 1 of 1 and higher. A Ronaldo out of 25 Donruss goes for 252 and a 10. We have a couple more of the Brazilian issues. This is a 44 Balas Football of Sastre that goes in a 1 for 276. This was also a fairly good price. I think it was a little stronger than the last one that sold, probably a year and a half ago as well. This DD was also strong, but I thought this DD was relatively a good deal compared to, say, a Nilton Santos or a Jaume Santos that we'll see here in a bit. In my list, for whatever it's worth, DD's definitely a top 5 Brazilian player all time, and you could argue even maybe top 3. And so from that regard, I think that getting his pretty rare 57 in a PSA 1, pop 1 of 3, 1 higher is really good. That 1 higher sold a year and a half ago, I think it was, for the same exact price as this one. So it seems like the person that got the PSA 2 did a pretty good job there, and yeah, I would tend to agree. I'm agreeing with myself or whatever that's worth, I don't know. Beyond that, Ronaldo Bale duel here goes for 288. You have a Kaboom Katarina Macario. There we go. I knew the name. I got it because it's a U.S. player, but so be it. 288 on that one. This is the Jaume that I thought sold a little high. I do see a lot of people sort of going after Jaume Santos, but I am surprised. I mean, Nilton Santos, I guess he has 14, so a little less desirable, but to see DD with less watchers than Jaume Santos is relatively surprising to me. Beyond that, this Pedri goes for 300. I did look this one up. I think that was another one that I had closed, but whenever it first came out, the Raws were doing like 400 to 500. They got as high in a PSA 9 as like 700 at the peak of Pedri's market, which is a little later than the peak of soccer, and they're down to 300 now, despite doing pretty good things, generally speaking. So, doing all right. I mean, $300 still isn't anything to scoff at, but not what it once was by any means. And out of 149 Red Wave, Lamine Yamal, this is the mezzanine, goes for 310. We have a Rodrigo Kaboom, along with a 82 Catalonia Porta della Mundial of Diego Maradona, goes in a PSA 5 for 300. Pop 1 to 3, 5 higher. Seems like a pretty strong price. I mean, it's a nice looking Maradona, but I don't know. Just strikes me as strong. 12 watchers, 5 higher, pop 1 to 3. There will be another strong Maradona sale later. Maybe he's getting a little bit of steam on his 80s issues. Then we have a Topps Now MVP Messi out of 99 Collector's Edition that goes for 300. We have a Kaboom Jack Grealish. Not doing a whole lot at City, but so be it. It's a Kaboom. It's a Grealish. I dare to say it's a rookie, but I could be totally wrong on that one. It does say rookie in the title, so it goes for 312. And then a Cristiano Ronaldo Black Color Blast. Take your pick. Ronaldo Color Blast, Kaboom Grealish. I mean, seems pretty easy. Although the watchers, I mean, there's more on the Grealish. So what do I know? That could also just be a Kaboom thing. Kaboom obviously has a lot more collectors than Color Blast. And speaking of the Devil, we got a few more here. Kevin De Bruyne goes for nearly the same price as Antoine Griezmann. Take your pick of the bunch. I'd probably take the Griezmann personally, but there are a decent amount of collectors of both in the hobby, I would say. So those two similar prices. I did look up the Griezmann earlier. It's gone now. Again, I closed a lot of tabs. I have some of the later ones saved, but the Griezmann actually has performed really well. From like peak market, it's actually up like 50%, and that's pretty consistent amongst all the sales. So doing really good there. We also have a Mojo Kylian Mbappe in here. We don't have to look at Kylian Mbappe Prism Grass. We know where that's been. So PSA 10 2010 Lionel Messi goes for $336. I thought this was a pretty interesting comparison. I mean, three kind of like good stickers in the same row. 2018 Kylian Mbappe, PSA 10 Gold, a PSA 10 2010 Messi, or a PSA 9 Ronaldo. I'd probably take the Ronaldo personally. I mean, pop 1 to 6, one higher. We've seen Messi's, well, this exact Messi and PSA 10 sell basically like every week, it feels like. And, there's a lot of gold Kylian Mbappe 2018. Granted, I know it's a special year, special achievement, all that good stuff. So there is some relevance here for sure. But pop 1 to 6, one higher. Nice looking Ronaldo, early career. I would take this one myself. Watchers also sort of lean that way with 44 over here. I mean, a lot of watchers, they still paid the same price. So what does it mean? You can decide that for yourself. Cezinho here, I left my watch on again, but this one goes for $360, which again was a pretty good price, considering the DD is, what was that, like $270? Granted, the DD, it's pretty late in his career. I say late, I mean, he has a lot more earlier issues that are also very rare, so there's a lot more competition, I would say. We have a Panini Instant Messi that goes for $372. The Black Label doing a lot of work here. I saw on Instagram someone posted in their story that they got a PSA 10 of this one last night for like $40. So a 10x premium on a Topps, well, it's not Topps now, it's a Panini Instant, but a 10x premium on a Panini Instant for the Black Label. Personally, I'd want no part in that. I mention it a lot. A lot of these Black Label, they're basically straight from Panini, straight to the end consumer without going into packs or anything like that. So they're very easy to gem and relatively easy to Black Label. It is a pop 101, but there's 13,000 of them out there, and I'd imagine if people are paying $400 a pop, that probably changes. So, but, I guess if you're a Messi collector, you want the BGS Black Label of him winning a trophy. It's kind of cool, don't get me wrong, but to me, knowing what the Black Labels do and how often they come out with Panini Instant, it's a little scary. Rivellino from 67 in a 3 goes for $396 there. Pop 1 of 1, none higher. We then have a Hero Variation Lamine Yamal in a PSA 10 that goes for $408, along with a Pele Crack Golasso in a 5 that goes for $420. Doesn't seem like a terribly strong price for what is a pop 1 of 2, 3 higher. Those Pogs are never going to be typically in all that great of condition. I know with Maradona, I mean, you barely ever see anything above a 4. They do exist. You see them from time to time and say like a Golden Premier or I guess a Fanatics Premier, Golden Elite, all that good stuff, but not easy to come by. $420 on that for the set registry chasers doesn't seem too shabby. Lamine Yamal variations of the Sapphire out of 50 goes for $420 to finalize that row. Above that, we have a Graf Zico for $468 and a PSA 5, pop 1 of 1, none higher. Pretty nice grade on that one for sure. We have a 70 FKS Pele and an 8 that goes for $480, pop 1 of 3, none higher. So again, the registry chasers going hard at that. And then finally, a 2014 Signatures Neymar PSA 10 that goes for $492. Doesn't strike me as a crazy price at all, to be honest. If you assume a 9's, say half the price, maybe a third of the price, that would mean that that's like $150 to $250. And I mean, Neymar, at least when I think of 2014 World Cup, I think of Neymar. Luckily, I guess for him, he wasn't a part of that 7-1 game, but at the same time, sort of his coming onto the scene tournament, and a really memorable one at that. Also 69 watchers there, so a nice amount there. We then have a Kylian Mbappe PSA 9 rookie from Topps Museum out of 50 gold. That goes for $528. Doesn't strike me as a bad Kylian Mbappe rookie if you want to go ahead and chase one that is sort of out of the norm. $500 for gold 2017 Topps. I mean, that's not bad at all. Granted, Topps Museum doesn't get a ton of love. I personally like them. I think they look kind of cool, but I mean, I wouldn't take it over the equivalent Select Field Level or Topps Chrome Refractor, but at the same time, you're getting it for much cheaper of a price, so that's sort of baked in. And then the 73 confectionery footballers Pele, we see this, from time to time. Typically always does a good amount, 552, pop 104. Personally, I'd rather take, say, the Pog we saw earlier, even this FKS myself. But to each their own. I think the 10, just carries a lot of weight. People love PSA 10s, and to get a PSA 10 Pele is probably fairly difficult. This Billy Bassett goes for $630. Again, I looked this one up. The only two to sell before this, I think they were both 6s, and they sold for like $1,200 a piece a couple years ago. So this one doesn't get a terribly high price. It's pop one of 2.5 higher, goes for $630. I don't think that this is necessarily the first soccer set that's out there, but it's sort of like the first notable, like, widely regarded soccer set that there is. And they just look beautiful at the same time. There's a few notable players in here. This is definitely one of them, and gets a pretty good price at that. But also, if you're collecting it or just trying to get in on it, also seems like a fair price to go ahead and do that. You got the eye appeal sticker as well going in your favor, top 15%. A couple Leaf autos here. Cristiano Ronaldo, 1 of 1, or a 2015 out of 5 Messi, both going for nearly $700. And then finally, for page 3, we have a 2017 refractor Kylian Mbappe. This was one of the lowest sales of the last year. Some of the highest sales were around 1,000. I think the lowest was like 730, 750, something like that. So these aren't doing all that hot as of late. Again, me personally, I'd save $220, grab this myself, but again, to each their own. 58 Alifa Boulanger. Here you got the Pele and a PSA 5. Obviously, this is the Brazil team, but most notably Pele, going for $810 there. And then finally, this Merlin Pedri. I think this is the first one of the higher ones that actually was pulled up. I got the 1,000 and above, essentially. And this one sold for $840. Last time this had sold, I think it was the same exact copy. This sold for $1,100 last year. And then before that, it is, I think it might not be the same copy, but it was a BGS 9 in 2022, October 2022, that sold for $4,300. Again, I always harp on these prospects. Pedri's still doing great things relative to, many other prospects, I would say. And, this was basically bottom of the market. At least, from what we can see now. It seems like 2022, October, November, December was bottom of the soccer market. And from the bottom of the market, he is now down another 80%. So that's just always the thing to be careful of with these prospects. Even if they do okay, it's just not enough to really keep up the hype, because there's going to be a newer and better and, more exciting young player out there. It's just sort of the way it works. Now, just because it's not, ultra modern doesn't mean it's not immune from a big crash. This is one example of Franz Beckenbauer PSA 6 that has gotten quite the beating as of late. There it is. This one goes for $900. Before this, $1,100, $1,000, $960. So it's relatively in line. I think that if you just isolated the last year on this card, we've sort of found a bottom here. And I do think that some of the other copies do look a bit better. Like this one's colors is, significantly better than this one. The front's sort of faded. But if we go all the way back to the booming days in 2022, February, 24K. So, again, just because you're not buying modern doesn't mean you're safe. At this point in time, I think you're a lot probably safer buying a $1,000 Beckenbauer than a $24,000 Beckenbauer for sure. Time's proven that. But at the same time, some things have changed. There's been a lot more high grades coming out. I think PSA also hasn't done this card or a lot of vintage cards justice, in the sense that their grading is just very sporadic. I talked about it last week with the Jared Muller we saw. There was clear back loss or paper loss on the back, and it was graded like a 6 or 7 when it should have been a 1 or 2. So when that type of stuff happens, it's sort of like fakes with, say, Ronaldo. Because the fake will significantly suppress comps. People will see a regular, again, comparing this to Ronaldo, a real sticker might sell for $5,000, but when a fake one in a BGS slab in the same grade sells for $2,000, people sort of take that new comp and associate that with the real price, because they probably don't know any better, or they think that now they can get it for that price. And so it kind of just undercuts, which is, not fair to the actual, legitimately graded copies. This being much the same. Again, when you have back loss on some of them, there's 6s that really look like 2s, and so they're going to do significantly less. Now, I think that there's a lot of natural depreciation which happened here, but at the same time, I think that there's unnatural depreciation which happened due to some of the grading fiascos. So they might be artificially suppressed, they might be where they're supposed to be. Either way, I think that that's a decent price. Granted, I don't think it's the best looking 6, but it's a good price comparatively. So A Jude second year out of 10 here in a PSA 10 goes for $900 with the auto. This Rafael, we're just not even going to talk about it. This is like the 10th time I've seen this run in the auction block. Hopefully someone buys it one day. If not, we'll just keep seeing it get rerun. Beyond that, a Saddam rookie here of Rivera in a 3.5 grade goes for $930. Pop 1 of 1 for higher. I did see that there was concern, again, in the vintage Discord about the corners, or more so the edges, and how there's not as much border as you would see on other ones. I guess we can go ahead and take a peek and just sort of compare. So this is the card itself, and the edges you can see. I mean, not the crispiest of edges. I guess the right side is probably where the concern would be. If we go ahead and look at some of the other sales, this PSA 1, for example, you can see a good bit more border on the left, really beaten up as well. That one for $168. This PSA 1 right here, again, I mean, you know, it doesn't look terrible. I could see maybe that being the case, but generally, these don't come up all that often. As you can see, there was only one last year that came up, and that was in a PSA 1. The last PSA 4 did, what was that, $1,500 back in 2022, so a 3.5 doing $930. I guess it's not as strong of a sale as it could be, but it's also not terrible at the same time. Beyond that, Diego Maradona, this is the 84 disc. The 10 we saw sell, I think it was last week, maybe it was the week before, for nearly $5,000, somewhere around there. And that seemingly helped this one. I think I brought that sale up. I did. Yeah, the sales on this basically doubled. And again, whoever bought this on eBay is looking even more like an absolute killer when they got this for $159. So now it's an $1,100 card. I would imagine we might see more of those if that price is to sustain. We shall see, but I think the PSA 10 definitely helped that one go. Beyond that, a 53 Bruguera here, Di Stefano in an 8.5 grade, just an amazing grade. Pop 1 of 1, 1 higher, goes for nearly $1,300. Didn't pull that one up because, I mean, you really can't look at any similar grades, so what's the point? But good amount of watchers there at 56. You also have 69 here on this Johan Cruyff Palarex in a 2 for $1,440. I mean, this was actually kind of light. Typically, 2s have been in like the $1,500 to $2,000 range. The color isn't the best. You can kind of tell. The centering's not the best, although I do think the edges and corners look pretty crispy at the same time. The back's a little beaten, but, I mean, at the same time, again, it could be a lot worse. So I think that that's probably a good deal if you're looking for a Palarex. Seemed like you got it at a decent price. This Pulisic, I mean, I think this is one of the highest Pulisics we've seen in these auctions, but $1,500 for 2016 PSA 10 rookie auto. I did take a look. We don't take a look at a lot of Pulisic because I don't like talking about my USMNT guys. Obviously, I have a biased take on them, but this has done pretty well. The last one sold for $1,600 on a fixed price, so doing $1,500 on auctions, pretty good. Beyond that, $660 in 2023, so it's up quite a bit. And in terms of the highest price ever, we really can't find anything in here. I think if it would have sold in 21, 22, somewhere around here, probably would have been close to, say, 2,000 to 3,000. So I do think it's down a bit from all-time highs, but it's definitely come back a bit from his later Chelsea days. So doing pretty good there. Beyond that, Kylian Mbappe out of 10, 2022 National Treasures. I thought this was a pretty cool one for the price. I mean, a gold out of 10 Kylian Mbappe. Again, you know, I'm old enough in the hobby to remember the days where Kylian Mbappe didn't have any cards signed, and then he started getting some cards signed, and everyone was all over it. And at the time, you would have thought this was a huge card. Now we're looking at it, $1,800 card. I know he didn't win the World Cup, but man, he had quite the performance. And, you know, if I was a Kylian Mbappe guy, obviously the grade can scare you, I guess, but at the same time, I mean, you know, you could crack it out, submit it back to PSA, get it authentic graded with like probably 10 auto, and that'd be a pretty good looking card, I would think. So maybe someone's doing that, maybe someone's just PCing it, maybe they'll flip it, I don't know. But I think that's a pretty cool one. Beyond that, Della Sport PSA 9 Pele goes for $2,100, pop 1 of 5, none higher, about as good as you're going to do there. Beyond that, a PSA 5 Messi here in a, well, I already said PSA 5 grade, but the 71 bis goes for $2,300. And in terms of pricing, that is, it's not on this chart. It would be basically at the highest it's been over the last year, but not really up at all, which is interesting. I have a take on that. We'll talk more about it in a second when we see a PSA 6. But yeah, this is basically even over the last year, which is interesting because in that same time frame, you know, the PSA 9's up like almost double, and some of the higher grades are doing pretty good as well, but some of the lower grades, not so much. Beyond that, a Prism 2018. This is the on-card auto, but of course with the coat hanger auto, so make of that what you will. Me personally, I'd be a little suspect. I think at this point in time, I think it's starting to get baked into the prices that people are figuring this out. I also think that's why some of these are coming to auction. But they also still get good prices. I mean, nearly $3,000 for what could be Messi's brother's auto. But yeah, pop one of 11, 2 higher. You also have this alternatively, which is a 2018 sticker auto, and as you can tell, the auto looks very different. This one goes for a little bit higher, which sort of goes to the point. I mean, it is rarer, it's out of 25, but it is a sticker compared to this, which is on card, and the sticker does the same price, so you would think people are taking that into account one way or the other. Beyond that, orange Kylian Mbappe out of 65 and a 9.5 grade goes for $3,100. I do believe I looked this one up and kept it up. This one's $3,100. Last one was $2,800. Of course, if we go back, it's going to get worse. This is the same exact copy that sold last year, so it's up a little bit from there. And yeah, if we go all time, I mean 2021, 17K. So, decent bit of a dip, but what are you going to do? Then we have the PSA 6. We can look at the chart and go ahead and look. PSA 6, 71 bits, where are we at? Over the last year, actually up a decent bit, 25% here. Again, is this comp in here or not? It's not, but it's basically the same price as this one, up a little bit. I think the all-time high here looks like a bin at $3,800. So one of the highest prices, if not the highest price for an auction over this time frame, which is pretty good, up nearly 25%, a little higher than that. And yeah, I mean, in terms of why these haven't performed as well, I guess my thought would be, well, one, they're not as rare, but two, and I guess, we can go, I had the 5 pulled up for this point. But if we look at this, they also didn't perform as bad during the boom when we sort of came down. Now, there's a few outliers up here, don't get me wrong, those are down a lot, but those are only 3 sales out of a pop 104. So most everyone was buying this at 4,300 or less. I mean, probably 4,000 or less, to be honest. And if we take this one out, the high was 4,000. We're at we're basically at 2K now, 2,300. So, I mean, yeah, they're down 45%, but from the boom, as we know, when the boom was 20x what it was pre-boom, being down 45% isn't the end of the world, unless you were one of these few outliers that were buying at the all-time peak. I totally get that. But, on the alternative side of it, if you're one of the people buying at 1,700 or 1,300 or 1,800, you're probably feeling all right. You've made a little bit of money over the last couple of years holding what is one of the most iconic soccer cards there is. So I think it's a good spot to be. I think we're, oftentimes focused on the peak to like just an extreme extent. I think if you take out the peak and kind of look at where we've been and maybe where we're going, granted this PSA 5 again hasn't really moved as much, but I think a lot more people were really interested in the lowest grades during the boom because that's kind of what you could get, and a lot of people wanted this card, but they couldn't get the higher grades. So I do think people were probably still reaching at the lower grades during the boom, and I don't think as many people are reaching at the lower grades right now when they're not moving. Now, if they start to move, that could all change, but there are a lot of higher grades that also sort of have to move to allow these to move. It's sort of just a chain reaction that takes place. So, food for thought. Beyond that, above that, we have a Grand Eminence here, a Grand Signatures Cristiano Ronaldo. Goes for 3,500 out of 5. Pretty cool card there. Beyond that, Record Pele from 58 and a 9 goes for 3,800. These have been typically between like 4 and 8K. The 8Ks are typically on the extreme high end, but this is not a great sale. I can remember a time during the boom where, like 3s and 4s were probably going for nearly this price, so this is doing pretty poorly as of late, but at the same time, the records, they do grade at a pretty good clip. Pop one at 12 here. I am surprised there's no 10s. Whenever that happens, I'd imagine that does a big number, but yeah, 3,800, if you're trying to build out Pele highest grade early stuff, I don't think it's a bad spot, but at the same time, you could get a pretty nice looking Aquarella for near this price, and generally I like the Aquarella more than the Record, despite the Aquarella not being one of my favorites, but, nonetheless. Next to it, same price here, we have an Arsenio Arico from the 34 Cigarillos. That goes for 3,800 and 40 pop, one of 2, just one higher. Looked it up. I looked up the player in general. Basically as high as they'll ever. By far, the highest we've had before that is the Leez set, which went for 1,300 and 750 back here. There was also this disc that went for 640 from a year earlier than that, and this seemingly seems to be his rookie. pre-war South America, not my strong suit, but I can read prices, and this price would definitely indicate that it is a pretty meaningful card. The only thing higher here was this Leaz, basically entire set, I believe, that you can almost just cut out. So yeah, that's gonna do more. It's got a lot more players in its complete set, essentially. Other than that, this being the highest ever by a decent margin is really cool to see, because of course we haven't seen one of those sell ever on these weeklies. So cool to be able to throw that one in the memory bank. 40 watchers there for 1934 is pretty good also, especially at that price point. Beyond that, I mean, in most weeks, this would probably be a top 3, but this gets us into the top 6. We start with the 2018 Heung-min Son that goes for 4,400, and, Prism Gold's going to do big numbers, especially of an Asian player where you get a lot of love for their players over there, which is great, Obviously, I'm a bit biased. I always see Europeans make fun of Americans and say, why do you guys pay this much money for the players, that suck, they're terrible. Heung-min Son, I mean, pretty good, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying he's as good as I'm not going to compare him to an American player. I don't want to do any of that. But what I'm saying is, people having love and being willing to go out and buy these cards, even at high prices, I think, isn't that what you want in soccer? I don't know why people sort of make fun of that or, demean it, because that's what you should want. I don't get it. I think a lot of people think that the soccer space should be a space where everyone fawns over the best guy and that's all they buy, but I think collecting is a lot more than that, and so I like seeing this type of stuff, and I encourage it. Now, price-wise, how does it fare? I don't know. A lot of this stuff, if you want to enjoy it. And so, 4,400 on that in terms of pricing. Not the highest sale ever. I think that this was the same one. I'm not sure. Again, I talk about not caring about price. Okay, it wasn't. So this is a newer graded one. This goes for 4,400. It's right in between the comps here, 5,700, 3,200. So it seems to be within the range and actually up from the last sale. So that's pretty cool to see. Up a good amount there too, like 25% or so. Beyond that, Alifa here, this one performed pretty poorly. I thought initially it was just because it looks kind of bad, which I mean it does, don't get me wrong. Like, it's got a few creases in here. It's not the best looking one. The corners are pretty beat. I mean, they're really beat. So it's a bad looking one. The back's intact, so you got that going for it. But in terms of comps, some of the others here, I got to close the sales, but yeah, this one is not in here yet, and if it was, it wouldn't be this low, but it'd be close to here, so it would come back a decent ways, which I think's fair. When I look at the sales here, the last two were actually pretty beat. This was one of them. I mean, when you look at it, pretty rough looking. I wouldn't say it's significantly worse or better than the one we just saw. The last one to sell, which was 7,200. Again, I think the colors are a lot better on this one, but again, you got some decent creasing going on in there. I think those were probably aided by this one selling for 8,100. This is a really nice looking one, so I could see why this one did 8,100. I think the others at 72 and 75 probably were a bit strong, considering this one has great eye appeal. And it has the eye appeal sticker. People roast the stickers and say that they're stupid. But I also see a lot of people say that grading's stupid and that grading's dumb and that grading people don't know what they're doing. And so I think that there is value in having someone that is not a grader look at them and say what they think about it, because they might spend as much time as a grader does on some of this stuff and looking at them. And I think generally that the eye appeal stickers, on stuff like this, especially like vintage, are, pretty true to form. So, again, think of it what you want. I'm not here to push one thing or the other. I own nothing with those grading stickers on them. I don't care. If they were bad, I'd say they're bad, but I think generally they get them right. All to say that this sale was a bit low, and maybe the other one should have been lower. Maybe this one just sold low. I don't know. There's a little something going on the top of the slab. I don't know if that's a crack or if that is just something that got in the scan, but a little strange. Nonetheless, not the best sale there on that one. Beyond that, you have an out of 5 Lionel Messi Gold National Treasures Century out of 5. This one, of course, the coat hanger auto going for it. We saw the out of 10 jersey number last week sell for nearly the same price. It is not game worn, if memory serves me correct. It is player worn. So player worn, suspect auto. I can see why it's probably not doing the best, but nonetheless, still gets a really nice number, 8,400 there. So again, seems like people are sort of offloading these. I've seen a lot more of these coat hanger autos than basically ever in these auctions the last few weeks. And then finally, takes us to the top 3. We have a 2018 Kylian Mbappe. This is a BGS 9.5 pink that goes for 8,700, and pretty good number. But at the same time, I thought this was kind of light. At least my initial impression was that. I mean, I know it's a lot lower, but the orange is out of 65, and that went for 31. This is out of 8. pretty hard to get, and, you know, it's 2.5x the price, but, I mean, you know, maybe nearly 3, but I thought it was decent. I mean, for the price point, if we go back and look here, the only other one to sell in a 9.5 was during 2021. Ooh, I didn't know that. Okay, so the pink apparently is National Convention. Okay, all right. That makes sense then. I do believe that that's what that means, and if that's the case, then I sort of understand it. 9.5, though, goes for 19.2 during the boom, now goes for 9, down 50%, which, you know, for an Mbappe Prism isn't the worst, but, yeah, not great either. That makes a little more sense, kind of, you know, aligns, I guess, more so in my head, knowing that now. But yeah, 8,700 on that, pop 104, none higher. Next, we have this Aquarella Pele that goes for 8,700. I did look this one up. This was basically right on point, and we see the Aquarellas a lot, so I didn't feel the need to go and look at the chart for that. This Kylian Mbappe, this PSA 9 sold for 19.2. I did have that one pulled up. I closed it. Apologies on that. But this same exact card actually did sell, I believe it was a year or two ago, for like 37. So quite the haircut there. I mean, you know, I always just love this card. Now, at the same time, do I love the price? I don't know. I mean, I'm not buying $20,000 Mbappes. But, I mean, that's a nice looking card. So, PSA 9, you got the mint grade going for it, or going against it, depending on how you want to look for it. 8 out of 10, not jersey number, but what are you going to do? I guess 29 is his jersey here, so ultimately, still a really nice card. I think it looks great. 20,000, great, you know, to each their own, but tops this auction block and tops it by a long way, over double anything else in this block. So, really cool weekly. I had fun going through it. Hopefully you did too. Of course, as always, we're going to take a peek at next week and see what we got here. So we got an Optic Gold Vinny going already at 2,100. You got a Messi from 2022 Eminence with a nice looking auto there at 18. You have a Zidane PSA 8. Pretty cool to see one of those go. Beyond that, another Messi here, this out of 10. I don't believe that this is the same one. It is not, but we got another one going. People are just selling those off. A gold Pele auto from 2018, really cool. Orange Cristiano Ronaldo going for 800 at the moment. Got a Messi treble, a Messi PSA 6 bis. A couple cool Pele's early career, another bis, a Monday Chromo. Ooh, you got a Baggio Forza Gold, there you go. A couple Maradonas alongside, and surely some fun stuff hidden in between. So, as always, hopefully you enjoyed the video. Again, if you did, make sure to leave a like. Anything you thought sold high, low, maybe something you snagged, would love to hear about it down below in a comment. And if you want to see more videos like this as soon as I go live, make sure to subscribe. But with that said, hopefully you have a wonderful day, and peace.